You put in a certain dollar with a certain frequency that you feel comfortable, either weekly, monthly, or quarterly, of an amount that you're familiar with, that you're comfortable with, that fits your budget, your finance. Then stay in with that recurring investment. Just stay in there, no matter what the market does.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Eric Chu. He's revolutionizing retail brokerage as the CEO of Trade Desk Securities, an SEC-registered broker-dealer that's transforming how everyday investors access capital markets. So, Eric, like I said, I like to let you tell your story, let you tell the guests about, kind of what you're doing. But first, I want to say thank you for coming on the show today. Thank you for taking the time to be a guest and share your story. I really appreciate having you here. So thanks very much.
Yeah, great to be here, Jason. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start. Tell us about your background, kind of, where you've been and what got you to where you are today.
Sounds good. So I kind of had a pretty interesting and unique background. I was originally actually an engineer in training. Did my master's, also practiced for a few years as an engineer. However, when I was practicing, I found myself increasingly spending more and more time on the financial market, specifically stocks, kind of traditional engineering. I found myself, spending hours and hours or nights, weekends, looking at Yahoo Finance, diving into companies, their financials, what they do, and why they did certain things that they do. So to the point that I found that, there's a lot of things that I did not understand in terms of knowledge, in terms of terminology, so on and so forth, right? So I made a pretty, kind of firm decision to switch career. So I, went to quit my job as an engineer, and then I did my MBA at NYU Stern School of Business full-time for a couple of years, and then completely switched into finance. So after business school, did a few years at a leading investment bank as a research analyst covering telecommunication services. And also had worked as a research analyst, equities at a hedge fund, pretty decent sized hedge fund for a few years. And then finally switched over to the corporate side as the CFO of a joint venture working with some of the leading private equity firms in the world, more specifically on the kind of data center, internet infrastructure space for a long time. And then COVID hit. So I used to travel a lot, in the US, in Asia, but with COVID, I could no longer do that. And also in COVID had a little bit more time, sort of reflect on my career, on my life. And then, had a lot of conversations with my friends, former coworkers, family members. And one thing that I've found is a lot of my friends, most of them, they are working professionals, right? They're either, doctors, lawyers, people in pharmaceutical industry, in IT services industry. A lot of them, what they found is that, they had a very, very busy life, building their career in whatever profession they're in. They also are very, very busy, supporting their family, raising their kids, taking them to soccer practices, right, tennis practices, golf practices, what have you, right? But in the meantime, all of them, they wanted to have a successful and well looked after financial plan and financial objective, either, supporting their kids to go to college or retirement down the road for them. So, but, the pain point is most of them, they either don't have the time or don't have the knowledge, or some of them, to be frank, they just don't have the interest to spend hours and hours, at night on the weekend, diving into companies, 10Qs, 10Ks, financial statements, right? All those stuff. So that's kind of got us inspired a few founders of Trade Desk Securities, because all of the people at Trade Desk, we were, pretty, senior veterans on Wall Street, different walks of Wall Street, from all the way from financial services to investment banks to wealth management to corporate CFOs, right? We all had share sort of the same goal of helping the average investors, right? People who may not necessarily work on Wall Street, people who don't work in finance, but people who do have the desire to be successful financially, in addition to their whatever career they're building. So that's essentially the origin of Trade Desk Securities. We wanted to build a platform where average people, we're specifically targeting the non-finance people, working professionals, people who can come to our platform and then tap into the tools that we have built up over the last 4 or 5 years. These are tools traditionally only accessible, sort of a privilege to the financial pros, people working on Wall Street. But now we have spent the time and the investments building out those tools and making those tools available to average investors. I think a lot of those tools will help people kind of, save a lot of time, and also just be, to learn more things on finance in a more efficient way. That's kind of essentially sort of the origin of Trade Desk Securities.
No, that's great. And you mentioned kind of I guess I would put these as, kind of the three barriers to entry when it comes to investing, but you mentioned lack of knowledge, lack of time, or lack of interest, right? There's kind of those three components that really, those are some number, whether it's one of them or all three of them, that hold people back from even getting started investing in any capacity. And I think that's where things like your platform become so important to creating tools, just avenues that people can go down that maybe just they are lacking some of those things, but still lowering those barriers to entry and letting them still, sort of invest in their future. I guess maybe first, Eric, walk us through a little bit of the use of the platform and kind of what someone would expect when they go to Trade Desk.
Sure, absolutely. So we, first of all, a customer would expect a very smooth onboarding process. It takes literally, a couple minutes for you to apply for an account, first register, and then apply for a brokerage account, where you would immediately be able to access all those tools that I mentioned. For example, tools like recurring investments, fractional shares trading, thematic trading, insider monitoring, stock screeners, so on and so forth, right? Any customer would be able to access those tools immediately. Now, all these tools are free to access, and then once you get to a certain level where you are familiar with, you're comfortable with doing some trades, then you can, deposit some money and then doing trades also in that platform, buy, sell stocks, options, ETFs, ADRs, right? It's fairly basic type of securities. That's kind of what people should be expecting. We have looked at a lot of other platforms out there where we have designed our platform so that it's not too simple to dumb down, but in the meantime, it's not overly complicated, where people can still have easy access to get to the information they're looking for fairly easily.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those tools. Is there, I guess, in the capacity of trying to help people that are new to investing in securities, how is there, I guess, advising on what to pick, or how does that how would you suggest someone? I kind of like that you said they have access to these tools before they actually have to invest any money, so they can get on there and just start learning first, and then kind of bring bring their cash into the account.
Are you planning a remodel or construction project? Overwhelmed by the process? Over budget? Extended timelines? Strained relationships? We are all too familiar. At Lark Construction Services, we help homeowners and business owners take control of their construction journey, from reviewing bids and contracts to catching red flags before they become costly mistakes. Our Clarity Audit is a one-on-one expert review of your plans, estimates, or current progress, giving you the peace of mind and a defined action plan to move forward with confidence. Don't let confusion lead to costly errors. Visit larkconstruction.com and schedule your free call today. Lark Construction Services, saving you time, money, and stress.
Yep, absolutely. You're definitely asking the right question. So for us, we are operating in a highly regulated industry by SEC, by FINRA, which is the financial regulator. Our platform, actually, we do not make recommendations right now for specific security stocks. But what we do is providing those tools to allow customers to do their own research, either on companies or on industries. As you mentioned, get familiar with investing. Maybe they are brand new to investing, right? They saw Tesla or Apple, some specific companies. They wanted to get a little bit more understanding, more familiar with the company, so they can easily go in there to the platform, look up, the company's name, and then, there would be a lot of information there that they can dive into, either their company's businesses, their financials, the latest news items. So all those information is available. We have one more kind of a tool that I didn't mention is paper trading. So after all those kind of a customers spend a little bit of time, looking for some information, get familiar with specific companies or industries, they don't have to dive into real money trading right away. So there's a paper trading. Essentially, it's fake money. You can go in there, but you would still be buying and selling those stocks in the same way as you were doing real trading. The difference is just, it's fake money. It's not real, but you get a sense of, okay, how to buy, how to sell, getting familiar with the process. Because, for some people, if you are very new to investing, it could be a little bit intimidating. So accessing that tool, it's providing a lot of customers some comfort, a little bit more baby steps before they dive into putting in their real money.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think getting some time to practice before you have some real money in there is nice. What would you say, almost to the, I don't know that this is a contrary argument to that, but sometimes people get stuck in analysis paralysis and they just don't ever take action and start the actual investment. So how do you suggest people kind of balance their maybe fears around investing and they can go in there and do the paper trading, which is great, like get some practice reps in. But I always wonder, it's like, what is the trigger? It's probably different for every person, but what is the trigger that allows you to just kind of actually start taking some action, feeling like, okay, I'm ready to put real money into the platform? What do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, so our kind of a general suggestion is start very small. Start small and start with either an industry or a company that you are somewhat familiar with, rather than a brand new sort of company or industry, right? That way, you'll have a little bit of a ramp up to ease into this investment world. And then also, recurring investment, it's something, a very, very simple but powerful tool that help average investors who do not work on Wall Street, who do not work in finance, to essentially somewhat level the playing field. It's just so that, once you set up this sort of recurring investments, you don't have to worry about market timing. You don't have to worry about, volatility. As a finance guy, also a CFA, myself, investing a long time, giving yourself a long investment horizon, it's very, very critical tool and advantage, for average investors. Actually, after sort of the Wall Street tour of the last 15 years, I would say looking back now, that might be one of the very few advantages for average investors to even keep up with Wall Street, right? I was on the other side of the table, hedge funds, investment banks, right? I understand, okay, these people, these organizations, they hire the best, the brightest of the graduates from universities. They, purchase the best equipment. They spend millions, if not, more in terms of capital to look at, the downstream, upstream, their competitors, their, all these kind of resources, their time. Now, individual investors, if you try to kind of spend maybe a couple of hours here and there doing research, you just cannot beat Wall Street. You cannot beat the market. However, there is a friend for most of the people, which is time horizon, because we, either 5 years or 10 years, giving yourself a long time horizon over time, as long as you stay in the game, steady recurring investments or some sort of strategy, that is actually ultimately help average investors potentially keep up with the market. In reality, there's a lot of smart people out there that trying to beat the market. But the reality is, I think I saw a stat, almost 95% of even the professional money managers, they do not beat the market, on a recurring way, consistently. Especially if you look at 5 years, 10 years, very, very few people would be able to beat the market. But what that means is, for individual investor, is as long as you somewhat stay invested in the market over a longer time horizon, you would potentially even be sort of at a performance that's similar to professional money managers, potentially even better. So I think that might be, look, after seeing all those, things on Wall Street, I think that might be the only advantage for the average investor to be able to kind of potentially do well.
Yeah, the long time horizon is, I mean, I would say in virtually every asset class, you have, if you are looking at it from a 5-year, 10-year, maybe even 20-year time horizon, virtually everything goes up over time. It just takes, you're going to have some fluctuations if you look at it on a narrow time frame. So that's, I think that's a fantastic point, and it hopefully maybe alleviates some of that fear. Is just get in there, and when you're talking about recurring investments, you're really talking about dollar cost averaging. Is that kind of the I guess concept that you're putting there?
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. Dollar cost average, which is the more common, more simpler one. There's also the value cost average, which is a little bit complicated. But let's stick to the kind of a simple side of the equation first. Essentially, you put in a certain dollar with a certain frequency that you feel comfortable, either weekly, monthly, or quarterly, of an amount that you're familiar with, that you're comfortable with, that fits your budget, your finance. Then stay in with that recurring investment, to stay in there, no matter what the market does, right? The market could be up 5%, could be down 10%, so on and so forth, right? During the volatile market, stay invested, stay kind of disciplined. Try not to let those emotions, work against you and then push you into certain kind of non-rational decisions. So that's going to help investors over time. I have to say myself, I can tell from my own experience, from day one when I started working, I put in my 401ks, recurring investments, just let it be, right? Day in, day out, invest a certain amount of money in your own portfolio, in your own plan, and then let it work out. You'll be surprised after 5-10 years how much you would be accumulate even without you realizing it. Just because, as you mentioned, the market, especially if you stretch it out over a long period of time, it always, most of the time, it would go up. There's a lot of complicated factors to consider, but as average investor, without having to chase after every single piece of news every single day, I think that's a very, very effective approach or concept for people to follow.
Yeah, and you mentioned 401k, which I guess in reality that's exactly what that is. It's a recurring investment that comes out from your paycheck each, whatever it is, month, however often you get a paycheck. And that money goes into account, and you've essentially preset the investment criteria, and someone else is managing that for you. But within Trade Desk, you're not managing it for people. It's they're able to make their own trades and kind of manage it themselves. Is that correct?
That's correct for now. So for now, we operate under something called a self-directed model. What that means is customers, they do their own trading, they direct their own, trading, they do their own research, and then they trade on their own. We don't make recommendations. We don't have, say, model portfolio for people to kind of to adapt to or to use. However, we are, from a business planning perspective, we are planning a essentially asset management business for us to be add on to what we already doing. So once we have that, set up, tested, we're going to most likely probably earlier next year, we're going to be rolling out that just so that some customers of ours could then be able to say, hey, look, Trade Desk people, I rather than try to manage everything ourselves, we can set up a goal together, and then help, we can potentially help our customers manage their assets. That's kind of a little bit down the road.
Okay, great. Well, that's something for users to look forward to there. What else? I think technology is obviously getting progressively. It's getting progressively better, faster, right? So we're seeing, there's a lot of talk about AI and in many different spaces. But how do you see the technology as a tech provider? Basically, how do you see the technology, improving over time? Do you see a use for AI in the securities trading world? I mean, what do you kind of see as a industry insider? What's your take on kind of what's coming in the future?
Yeah, so very good question. This is a topic that on a daily basis, stay on top of our mind. From a business perspective, product perspective, market perspective, right? So AI, actually, it's something, we at Trade Desk people, we are very, very excited about. Personally, I see a huge, at least in the initial wave of the AI adoption in the financial services market, I see a huge improvement in terms of efficiency of what people used to do versus what they can do now with AI. Just to give you an example, as a former, investment analyst at investment banks and also hedge funds, I used to spend 14 to 15-hour days, digging through companies, public listed companies, their quarterly earnings, their annual reports, their financial models, right? Their earnings transcripts, talking to their management teams, right? Doing comparable analysis of different companies in the market. All those, they were, even as early as 10 years ago, they were done. Everything was done all manually by people like myself, associates, people who fresh out of business school. I mean, who worked really hard, a lot of hours, right? But now, today, the same things that we're trying to get right? The same information, for example, comparable analysis of certain companies. All you have to do is put in a prompt in an AI tool. Say, for example, give me the comparable analysis of Apple versus its competitors, right? Give me a comparable analysis of a data center company A versus data center company B. Something like that used to take people, myself included, 10, 20 hours in order to basically comb through all those documents, some of them very, very lengthy documents, and then compile the information, put them together in order to get sort of just 4 or 5 bullet points. But today with AI tool, that 10, 20 hours gets shortened to maybe 5 minutes, or if not shorter, right? A few minutes. So things like that, I think, would tremendously help people get the information that they are looking for in a very, very effective and frankly more and more cost efficient way. So this is something that's very, very exciting for the industry. For us at Trade Desk, we are actually in the process of rolling out our own AI tool, probably sometime next month. So something we have been doing testing for a while internally. Essentially, this AI tool, once we roll them out, the idea is to be able to, that's a tool that's able to sit on top of all those tools that I mentioned earlier, fundamental analysis, thematic trading, insider trading, stock screener, what have you. This AI tool would be able to sit on top of all those fundamental tools that we have developed. And then users, all they have to do is go into the prompt and put in the questions, and then within seconds, then they can get the answers they're looking for. So this is something I think it's really a sea change, in terms of financial services. So something we're very, very excited about.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of talk about AI putting people out of work, and I think maybe some of those analyst positions, if you're replacing someone with a 5-minute AI analysis, that may be applicable in some instances. But I think that really what will happen is a shift in focus, and the shift in focus is going to be that you're going to still need someone analytical to I guess make sure that data is correct, make sure that it's making sense, help improve the AI's responses, improve the prompting to the AI, and then also educate the end user as to how these things can be beneficial to their own financial future, which was ultimately kind of the reason for doing all this, as you mentioned, just making it more accessible to people that are lacking some of those, the time understanding or the interest. I think that's a big. It'll be very, in the long run, beneficial tools to have in the hands of kind of your retail investor. I would say. What is your, I guess, in that vein, what do you think? Do you see this scenario where people become they have better or more ownership of their own, financial portfolios? Do you think that there will be a shift away from having, assets managed for them and just being, using a platform like Trade Desk and saying, I'm going to do this myself? When you are interacting with end users and having that data, I mean, what do you think? How do you see the feedback on that looking in the future?
Yeah, very, very good question. So, when we talk to our customers, existing customers and potential customers, I think, one trend that we're clearly seeing is more and more people, they want to take more control of their portfolio, of their investments. I think partially because now people, they have those tools that can help them, sort of make those decisions, help them learn, right? Help them educate themselves, and then help them to be more comfortable, getting familiar with sort of the investment world so that they can make those decisions themselves. I think we're definitely moving away from, those days when you had to pick up your phone and call your financial advisor or broker, hey, place 100 shares of Microsoft in my account. Well, we're definitely not going back to those days. So these days, it's more like, hey, this is a new idea. This is new stock. Let's do a little bit of research using the tools here. And then, once I get a little bit more familiar with it, then let's put in some, money and do some trade and see how that goes. Now, I think most people that we have talked to, our customers, what they do is, I think these are sort of a little bit biased towards working professionals. What these people do is most of them, they have 401k accounts where they put in those recurring investments, or you can call them boring investments on a recurring basis, right? And then separately, they have sort of a separate small pot of quote unquote play money where they wanted to test their ideas, right? Maybe potentially look for the next Tesla, next Apple, what have you, right? And then, they would need help on both. But again, with the technology, especially with AI tools, more and more available, more and more mature, more and more, developed, especially for financial services, I think people will find it increasingly easier to do a lot of things themselves.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, that's hugely beneficial to the population, and just having some ownership. Like, yes, get help, but and guidance and things, but like having a little bit better understanding and ability to controls your own financial portfolio, and just having some level of knowledge as to what's actually happening, I think is a huge benefit. Well, Eric, let me switch gears. I want to ask you. I told you I'm going to ask you a question that I ask every guest, and so it's based on the name of the show being Know Your Why. So I always like to ask everybody, what is your why? What's driving you? I mean, you're have developed, continue something I think will be extremely beneficial to people in at that end user level. And so what's driving you? What's kind of motivating you to continue forward?
Yeah, I think for me, it's, as I mentioned, so, I am someone who came from finance background, worked in Wall Street finance for a long time, and then sort of coming back to an area where we would be able to merge our finance background versus sort of the newest technology tools, and then be able to help non-finance background people in their investments, in their finances. I think that's what ultimately, sort of motivates our team. If we are able to see our customers increasingly be able to access those tools, sort of because of lower barriers to entry or lower costs or higher quality of access to information, I think those ultimately, help us, and those ultimately, I think, what's driving us.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Well, when people hear this and they want to connect, whether that be with you or the platform, go ahead and please let us know, kind of what the best ways for people to reach out.
Sure, absolutely. You can, look us up on www.tradedesk.co. That's our company's website. There's a lot of information, knowledge base, blogs, so on and so forth. And then, personally, you can look me up. The best way is to look me up on LinkedIn. Just look for Eric Chu, and then I'm right there. Feel free to connect.
Okay, perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes so people can find you easily when they hear this podcast. Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been really, I think will be very valuable to people, and should definitely check out the platform, check out Trade Desk. Like I said, we'll have the link in the show notes. Thank you for coming on the show and taking the time out today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. A pleasure to be here.
Great. And folks listening, make sure you connect with Eric and please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get more great guests. And as always, thank you so much for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?